Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbot333. Welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the new order as Chita. Now, last time we were here together, well, we took out recruits, we took out Amor, we're taking out Magadan, and we're going to take out Mr. Men, but then the mandate kind of, the sailors of all people kind of took that away from us, so now we have to rectify that. Do I want to do something to save our monarchist brothers? They're kind of fucked, aren't they? Well, thematic, thematic impact. I think there might be an event if they end up meeting up and unifying. So I do want to see if I can see that. So with content in mind, yeah, it's crazy how many fucking troops Samar can get. And look at all the fucking manpower they got. My god. We're nearing 500,000 people. Solely out of interest of, well, even the fucking Aryans. We're swarming with units, my god. Okay, I'll do that, and if by the grace of God they don't do that, I guess it sucks to sucks. I don't know what else to say. And like that. Got these guys. I don't even know if these guys can actually push in or core the Siberia stuff, actually. Invest in infrastructure, focus on research, and then external investments. That's the good stuff right there. We do something to commit to the war effort. Yeah, commit to the war effort. Let's get the speed going. We've only lost 8 people in this war, which I think is quite funny, actually, personally. Well, time to occupy Kamchatka. Let's speed out the budget one last time. And we have to finish up this focus tree, so let's do it. The Tsar's new groove. Fireworks, happiness, and graves. The thunder victory rumbles across the desolate wastes of the Far East. After a year of difficult campaigning against the Bolsheviks and fascists alike, the brave troops of the White Army have fulfilled Semyonov's dream of reconquest beyond the Amur. While white forces are, for the first time in over half a century, in a prime position to reunify the nation, although the Far East is not the most ideal foundation to wage war from, it's nonetheless a rather significant leap from the somber desperation of Harbin. Yet even as the exiles rejoice in their triumph, the stakes continue to rise. The eyes of the world drift curiously to Russia in the wake of his upset, and greater challenges loom over the horizon. The fighting may have subsided for now, but an entirely new battle is about to commence, the kind that is not necessarily fought with bullets. Offensive military activity will cease for the time being, as the vast regions gained during the unification wars have yet to be fully consolidated. Towns must be repaired, displaced people must be given homes, and subversive elements must be expunged. Even the highest levels of power begin to show signs of strife as civilian governors grow frustrated for a lot, their influence chafing under the crushing might of the White Army. For now, though, the time for making merry is long overdue. All hail Russia, one and indivisible. Divisible. God is with us. The city of Chita was set ablaze with lights and cheering, rather than being bathed in the horrors of defeat. Instead, it soaked in the triumph of victory. The war was over, and they had won. Flags emblazoned with the Imperial eagle were illuminated in the red, blue, and green fireworks as songs echoed from the streets below. Overlooking one street, the Tsar of his new realm, Mikhail, stood on the balcony, gazing upon the spectacle before him. The Tsar was filled with mixed, complex, and conflicting emotions over events. On one hand, it was difficult not to become aroused at the sight before him. Soldiers paraded down the streets in song. Yet there was a lingering dread in the back of his mind, one he could not quite place. A few moments of thought crystallized the feeling. He was stuck here. And the absurdity that was the success of those ludicrous jet planes of white generals, he realized he would never see anything beyond Russia. Whether he liked it or not, he would now have to accept this country as his new home. As his stomach turned over the thought, his ears perked at a new sound emanating below his balcony. God save the Tsar! God save the Tsar! God save the Tsar! The chant below only grew louder with time as more and more joined in. Slowly, the discomfort in his stomach was replaced with something else, something which stirred in his heart. Seeing these people, his fellow citizens, applaud and cheer him in such a way provided an odd comfort for the out-of-place Tsar. This might be his unwilling home now, he mused, but perhaps it would not be so bad after all. Moving page started to fade. Just a little. Jack Kennedy being shot, who would have thought? The celebrations that engulfed Chita spread out in the city. Deafening explosions rang out, escaping well outside the city's limits as bright lights polluted the normally calm sky. However, just outside of the city center, a lonely graveyard stood with row after row of tombstones marking the peaceful sleep of their inhabitants below the noise. Boris Shepyonov walked through the sea of sorrow around him. Ignoring the commotion outside, he headed directly to a single grave in the corner of the field, one he was quite familiar with. Reaching it, he knelt and cleared off the tombstone, revealing the name Grigory Semyonov. Hello, dear Ataman. It's been a while since our last conversation, hasn't it? You appear to be doing well, or at least more at peace since you were alive. He smiled faintly. I could bore you with more details of my struggle, but I have good news. We've done it. We've won. Last, the Far East is ours, united under Imperial realm, just as he dreamed so many decades ago. There's still much work to be done, though, with the West still unclaimed, but that's for the future. Now it's time for celebration. I only wish you were here with me to celebrate, my friend. Shepyonov's voice had become croaky by the end of his conversation. Gently, he placed a single flower on the grave, before slowly getting up and turning back around. As he walked towards the exit, was brought back to the world around him as a firework went off above him. He still had much work to do when he got back to the place. He shed a single tear before leaving. There we go. Let's do military base construction. And let's go head over here. Let's go ahead and integrate northern Siberia. and let us form the Far Eastern Imperial realm. Imperial authority has been restored to the Russian Far East. Now we proclaim ourselves as one true government in abeyance of all the Russians, and that is Mikhail II as its ruler. God save Tsar Mikhail II. Today, an address by Mikhail Andreevich Romanov on Russian radio confirmed what had widely been widely believed recently. That's the fact that he is a new czar and his government, originating from Chita, managed to bring the entirety of the Russian Far East under their control. The action, which was created by a large group of monarchist Russian emigres in Harbin with the support of the Empire of Japan, began as yet another warlord state near the Manchurian border. It was widely theorized that Tsar Mikhail was used as a puppet for other reactionary generals, and remains one, but that remains uncertain. What matters for now is that Russian monarchism has made its return, albeit far from the nation's core lands. Has the race for reunification begun? The answer is yes. More than likely, yes. Well, that's interesting. If we could do this, we'll just instantly skip forward to military professionalism. Physical places of Japan. You have some economic factors. Okay. First off, we have manpower issues. So let's go ahead and read this first. Since the demise of the Romanovs, Russia has only seen hardship and despair without their czar to guide them. Due to the defeat of the valiant White Army in the hands of Bolsheviks, Russia has endured a genocide that's both internal and external, seeing us robbed of lands and the people we need to sustain our state. Now, however, with the rule of our blessed Tsar restored in our corner of Siberia, we can take active steps to remedy this demographic catastrophe, bring Mother Russia back to former glory. Forward mounted under our control, we can actively track Russian emigres to return home to help rebuild our motherland. Thanks to our improved farm yields from reclaiming the arable lands and more, we can establish enough food production to justify establishing active state policies to encourage Russian families to have more children. We currently don't have an active repopulation program, but by introducing benefits for families to form and raise children, we should be able to increase our of births. We should probably fix that tab within the Imperial realm. We're currently lacking an organized immigration program. Thanks to possessing a good port in Russia and our good ties with the more conservative elements of Russian immigrant community, should be able to put together a program encouraging Russians living abroad to return home. As an end benefit, we'll bring their money and skills with them. Let's activate that remigration program then. We also have the Imperial fleet. Look at that. The Red Navy and the ships were largely destroyed, scuttled, or left to rot in scrap metal following the national collapse following the Second World War. Once anarchy gripped Siberia in the 50s, the last vestiges of the Pacific Fleet were either destroyed or reduced to piracy around Kamchatka. Now that order has finally been restored, we have the means to rebuild our navy. The world sees Russia much like it would regard a sunken battleship, a once mighty vessel left to rot and decay at the bottom of an ocean. While a navy may not be the most practical investment given our circumstances, putting ships to sea will help protect our trade, and for what's worth will show the world that we've recovered from the depths we were pushed into by proving that we can fend for ourselves once more, both in land and air and across the Pacific Ocean. Let's recover some schematics. Let's save up convoys to create a state fishing fleet. And it looks like we can only go for war. We also have all this regional development. How's our economy looking right now? We have a deficit going. We have some bloated reserves. Let's do a tax hike right now. I'm going to cut our army deficit. Or our army. I'll get something close to a healthy deficit. There we go. Also, it'll do some military austerity as well. Hold on to our reserves for now. I want to mitigate or minimize any debt, as much debt as we can, because that'll eventually pick up and screw us. What do we want to do? Honestly, let's get working down. Do some lessons of war, then head down here to try to up our military professionalism. Because if we go up to from cronyism to political interference naturally, and then we boost it up with a focus, I think that'll give us 2 ranks for the price of 1. So I'll go for that right now. Let's start with lessons of war. The White Army has triumphed over their many foes in the Far East, from the venomous fascists to our ultimate Bolshevik foe. Despite our well-earned victory, however, it is clear that the armed forces have a long way to go before they can be considered as a competent modern force. For now, we can start with what strategies and tactics would best suit our needs. The wars to reunify the region have taught us much about our strengths and weaknesses, and we'd be prudent to examine what we've learned before continuing our quest to reunify the country. Well, look at that. Our geologists have presented us with an interesting proposal. Within the archives of Yakutsk's old plans for a survey of the northern parts of Sakha have been collecting dust. They're expected to find diamonds and other valuable minerals there, but like so many other great and ambitious plans that were supposed to be part of a Siberian plan, this one too fell apart after the Axis invasion of the Soviet Union. Now we have a chance to turn these plans into reality. While it'll likely be a long and costly endeavor, the mere prospect of finding a diamond deposit on the scale of Yakutsk is too tantalizing of an opportunity to miss out on. Whenever the state is ready to allocate resources towards a project, the Army's Engineer Corps stands ready to put their shovels into the ground, hard, inhospitable ground. A glimmering light in a desolate waste. Well, there we go. We got all that now. Let's begin the Sakha expedition. Despite its inhospitable nature, the northern parts of Siberia hold great amounts of untapped resources, particularly minerals. Soviet geologists expected to unleash Earth these riches and vast labor forces were deployed as part of a Siberian plan to make this a reality. The project was stopped due to the outbreak of the Second World War, and only the husk of an old project remains. Now that our legitimate Russian government is restored and ordered in the region, we're able to resume the program and build upon the foundations that were left behind for us. It'll be a long and difficult task, but if we're successful, the vast riches and strategic infrastructure we'll gain from the project will prove vital in our efforts to reunite Russia. I also want to check real quick. Supply. We don't really have great supply going on here. We don't need to build anything out there, so I'm not worried about that. But something more up here, working our way up here is going to be important. Mikhail II had spent his morning wandering the gardens of his estate, lost in thought. His mind carried a heavier burden than usual, as recent revelations caused the Tsar much grief. Was there a single man he could trust? Good morning, Your Majesty. The familiar voice broke his reverie. Turning, Mikhail turned to greet Ivan Mikhailov, his Minister of Finance. Well, what a welcome surprise. Your Majesty, would you care to join me? I found a morning stroll is better with company. Although Mikhail did not fully understand why his minister was in his private residence, uninvited, he nodded, and the two men began to walk. Alike in mind and outlook, minutes passed as they were seconds while the two spoke, and the subject quickly turned to political matters. I swear, some days I would rather cast myself into the lake by call than continue haggle with our generals. Mikhail cast a brief, nervous glance around before he replied. It could be worse, I suppose. Most days they don't even let me leave this house. Mikhailov's pace slowed. There are many things in this land that simply do not make sense, Majesty. The militaries hold even more influence than you think. Mikhail's pace slowed to stop, and Mikhail watched with concern as the minister cast his own nervous glance around. I fear I may have said too much, my Tsar. I should leave before I am missed. We should speak again soon, preferably under less conspicuous circumstances. Standing alone once again in his gardens, the troubled Tsar was more confused than ever. The plot thickens. There we go. Let's do some good consumer goods efficiency stuff. Andrew Fontaine, eh? Interesting. In falsetto, this said, My dear father, this shall be my final correspondence. Despite all my best efforts to reach you, it seems futile to continue attempting to do so. Both you and mother remain in my thoughts and prayers. Much love, now and forever. Michael Andreevich Romanov. Tsar Mikhail sat in his personal quarters, looking at the envelope that contained his final letter to his father. It had been artfully enclosed within the vanilla-colored envelope, result of master practice and care by the Tsar. He sighed the deep, long sigh of a man preoccupied with a momentous decision. Gently taking it from his desk, he left his quarters to find Fyodor Orlov, his secretary. Mr. Orlov, Mikhail asked quietly as he opened the door. Orlov, sitting at his desk just outside, stood of Tsar's interest. I have one more letter from my father. He hasn't responded to the others, but I had to send one more. Would you take care of it for me? Orlov looked at the letter and pulled his hand out to receive it, but as he did, meeting the Tsar's gaze, guilt overwhelmed his features. Tears welled in the young man's eyes. What is it, Fyodor? The Tsar asked. Oh, my Tsar, I've done you a great injustice. Orlov proceeded to tell the Tsar the whole story. Shepanov had long been paying him to deliver Mikhail's letters to himself instead of to the post office. On more than one occasion, he even witnessed the general burning Mikhail's letters. Hearing this, Mikhail felt something he had not felt in a long time. Rage. I see, Fyodor. Thank you. Mikhail did not hand a letter to Orlov. Instead, he turned, headed back into his quarters, and wasn't heard from for the rest of the day. A flicker of emotion sat in the quiet of depression. Tell me, Your Majesty, Ivan Mikhailov's asked, dipping a spoon into soup. What was Australia like? You hardly ever spoken about it. Do you want to know the truth, Mikhailov? Tsar's tone was much more aggressive and authoritative than usual, and took Mikhailov by surprise. Australia was paradise in comparison. I hate this place, Ivan. And you want to know what's the worst part of it? I can't leave. No matter how hard I try, there's no way out. Mikhailov was stunned, but soon spit slipping from his hand. Your Majesty, Enough! I'm sick of pretending everything is fine, because it isn't. I can't even write letters to my family. Did you know that? The other day I learned my secretary was delivering all my mail to Shepanov. Don't you get it? I'm being held hostage in a country where everyone is spying on me. It's too cold. I can't even properly speak the language. Mikhail was silent, his mouth agape. It was as if for a few moments Tsar had become a completely different person. After a moment, Mikhail calmed. I'm terribly sorry. That was rather undignified of me. No, your majesty, you speak the truth. It is a sad state of affairs when even Russia's holy sovereign is nothing more than a slave to the whims of his army. You are the Tsar, emperor of all the Russias. The military likes to pretend that means nothing, but they have forgotten their place. You have a God-given destiny to lead, and they have a duty to follow in your wake. Perhaps it is not Russia you hate, my liege, but those who have selfishly taken advantage of her glorious legacy. Your legacy. The Tsar looked distant, his mind alive with powerful thoughts. Perhaps the seeds of conspiracy are sown. No, that's just exciting. Got some lessons of war. Next up, we're going to go on... Let's examine the troops. When you find yourself cornered on all sides by hostile forces in a depopulated frozen wasteland, you find that you cannot be too picky when finding men to serve on the front. The situation got desperate, and the White Army was forced to make compromises that they would have avoided in better days. As a result, many of our troops could hardly be considered motivated professional soldiers. With peace restored to the region, we need to closely examine our troops and separate the wheat from the chaff. Transport ships. Caffeine flow. There we go. With the anarchy in the Far East finally coming to a close, we need to set on rebuilding our economy. Our situation is, to put it frank, grim. We're suffering from a democratic catastrophe unlike any other in Russia and are far less developed than the warlords to the west of us, owing to the historical neglect of our region. For us to stand a chance of uniting the Russian lands under our banner, we must embark on a project of rapid economic and industrial growth. For nearly half a decade to undo countless years of underdevelopment, we don't have a moment to waste if we are to remedy our difficult situation. Let's get to work. Look at that. Port of Magadan, along with the city of Blagoveshchensk, are our windows to the outside world, which will allow us to catch up with our rivals in the west and restore ours to rule all over Russia once and for all. Through these, we'll be able to export our riches. The fucking AB, really? How? How in the bloody hell? Anyway, as we were. Through these, we'll be able to tap our economy. How we go about this, however, is a difficult matter that divides our government. Tsar Mikhail II has advocated for development scheme focused on restoring our strategic infrastructure and establishing fair bilateral trade agreements with both the OFN, the CPS, and various neutral parties. Chepanov and his White Army, on the other hand, advocate an aggressive expansion of our ties to the CPS, trading away an even greater amount of our resources and giving the Japanese very favorable agreements in exchange for greater access for their markets and technical support. Both plans have their advantages and disadvantages. We can only choose one at the end of the day to guide our nation's economy forward. Well, I'm gonna save up so we can get a repopulation program going. Let's get some vacuum tube computing. Vacuum cube, that's not it. Germany returns to Antarctica. Oh, Jesus. I didn't notice that. Huh. Decent game for the Reich. Wait, what? What the fuck happened? Why did he do that? Christ, that just fucked us, didn't it? Let's tie in the standards, and then... Okay. The only reason less than adequate men were able to fill our ranks was due to the fact that our recruitment standards were not very high to begin with. For unification, the Far East having a full-strength army was a luxury, and we were willing to accept anyone who was able to hold a gun. Times have changed, and we cannot continue to accept anything less than the very best men for the White Army. Chief of Staff Shepinov demands a strict tightening of the Empire's recruitment standards to ensure that anyone capable of disciplined fighting men will make the cut. Our new White Army will demand a certain level of quality within the ranks, and not every random vagabond who shows up at the recruitment office will be worthy of the uniform. I have no idea why I did that. I'm gonna look up 44 TNO. Okay, it's time for cheats. Societal _ development. Okay, it's event. There we go. I'm not gonna mess with anything else because we're back at a basic neutral level. Maybe God doesn't want monarchism to win. You know what? Why not just let the AB win? That does sound funny, if nothing else. Time the standards. Go down to military, Imperial War Academy. Let's get that boosted as well. Oh, why not? Let's reignite the movement. For the reunification of the Russian Far East and the total defeat of both the fascists and the Bolsheviks, the white movement has never been stronger. Sadly, the white officers who started this fight to reclaim Russia are getting on in years, and they cannot hope to continue the fight forever. Despite the general staff hesitations, there's only one answer to this problem. The White Army needs blood. Although the old whites have been skeptical of allowing new officers into the ranks due to fears of liberal and even social sympathies infiltrating the higher echelons, the fact is that we cannot avoid the inevitable. We will need officers at some point, for the white movement will die out with the old generals otherwise. Time has come to ignite the flames of Russian monarchism and anti-Bolshevism within the next generation of Russians, for it is they who will become the great general staff of tomorrow. There we go. We could do some fleet modernization. More interest in the fleet. though. Let's do the Amur Highway. Do a couple of these off the bat. Amur Highway. Let's repair the Baikal Highway as well. Honestly. Okay, I'm gonna... If I can't have our monarchist brethren win, I'm at least gonna have something funny win. There we go. Cheat bug. There we go. Let's do go Imperial War Academies. The White Army needs two officers. This dire requirement is prevalent in every aspect of the armed forces, from the rapidly aging general staff to the outdated nature of our strategies. New blood would not only provide a war of successors to the old whites, but also potentially provide us with bold, new military theories, better suited for modern battlefields. Sadly, we currently lack facilities for training new officers. The General Staff proposed establishing Imperial War Academies for this purposes. The Far East is home to a few war colleges from the Soviet era and older that have gone without use for many decades now. They could serve our purposes quite handily. These old schools of military learning shall be renovated and become the mold in which the next generation of white officers are shaped. Let's create a state fishing fleet. I want to do some poverty relief programs as well. Let's do some mechanization as well. Oh, Madrazo. Look at that. Let's do restoration work on the Yakutsk Hydro Power Station, I think that is. Sophie had ventured out from her apartment far more than usual. Ever since the fascists had been driven out of Zaya, she felt quite comfortable walking the streets again, knowing that the thugs of the RFB no longer terrorized the city. That's not to say, however, that things were any less strange. As she made her way home for the day, Sophia noticed a small group of people gathered around the sidewalk in front of her. Their attention appeared to be focused on something attached to the side of a building. Whatever it was, it caused quite a stir. As she drew closer, she could hear the people mumbling amongst themselves. Finally, she was able to see what exactly they were looking at. Attached to the wall was a large propaganda poster clearly meant to advertise service in the White Army. Front and center was an idealized depiction of a fierce-looking soldier charging a two-headed dragon with a rifle in his hand. The dragon was clearly an evil creature, with one head colored red and the other a deep black. Wrapped in the beast's tail was a pole bearing the tattered tricolor of Russia. Captioned in bold letters were the words, "Join the White Army, and deliver Holy Russia from the clutches of radicalism." Symbolism was not lost on anyone. Sophia could not help but feel twinges of concern. While the poster was fairly benign, similarly militaristic designs would not look entirely out of place in the previous regime. Continuing her journey home, she could only hope that her relatively peaceful existence would continue, even as the new regime tightened their grip. Fresh coat of paint. change it to fit. Let's do the Imperial Guard. Those all seem like solid blokes. And then let's do some exercises. Experience level 9, regular. Now Boris has fled Bulgaria. I have to go all the way down there for poverty improvement, really? Poverty rate decrease. Let's do the start of something special. With the communist, fascists, and mad cultists finally dealt with, we have acquired tentative control over the Far East. However, unless we take decisive and focused action, there's no guarantee we can secure that control. This is the start of something special, something that we've worked towards for a long time. But we cannot rest. There's much to do. We need to establish administration to remote areas of our territory, eliminate internal resistance, and steadily increasing tension between the military and between factions, both our government and military. Well, that much is true. How's our economy doing? Did we do anything to get up? I'll just be civilian austerity. I'm not big into that thought. The OFN is not having a good game, are they? Let's complete the Magadan connection. It's a little bit of debt, but I think the GDP growth will help make up for that. Although, could do emigrate abroad and get some extra money. It's not going to be much, but... Let's work on our hard-earned land. The vast taigas, tundras, and swamps of the Far East. Refreshing to hike, frustrating to govern. The sheer expanses that we're now responsible for are, to put it kindly, incredibly hard to administer. However, this shouldn't stop us. If the Bolsheviks could do it, we can too. A comprehensive plan has been put forward by some of our more economically minded members who followed us from Harbin. An extensive series of delegated provinces, each one of them relatively autonomous, with local militias ultimately subservient to the central government, will divide our land and ensure that we're able to govern, extract resources, and defeat the few ideological hardliners who have not yet given up. Boris Shepanov had come to appreciate the quiet moments, sitting alone in his office, a glass of vodka in hand. I want to look at military austerity. Where's the overextended? Yep. Yeah, let's try to cut that down the best we can. He reviewed the reports from his staff. As usually done, had bad news. More reports about the insurgents grew bolder day by day. More rumors about possible dissent from civilian administration and much else besides. It all was so tiresome. The general swiftly down the glass, and as the vodka stung his throat, Shepanov wondered what the Ataman would have thought about everything. The old Cossack always had a knack for keeping school, even when the situation was out of control. Now that Semyonov was gone, and it was up to him to clean up this mess, the general cursed himself for believing that life would become easier after his army's accomplishments. He should have known that by now that victories usually raised more questions than they answered. Deep down, Shepanov truly missed the old days in Chita, riding out with Semyonov and his Cossacks on daring escapades across the Siberian tundra. There, at least, he knew that his enemies would face him head-on. Nowadays, they held in plain sight. Hidden in plain sight. Peace had made Shepanov complacent, when what he really needed was to be more vigilant than ever. Shepanov moved to refill his glass. It diverted his attention away from the weariness of the day, if only for a moment. Something is amiss. But what? Well, you'll have to find out next time, won't we? I'm going to go ahead and leave things there, but thanks always for watching, my friends. Like the video, like, dislike if you didn't. Leaving comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all comments again, and I do appreciate any of you might have for me. The sub on the notification bell to keep up to date with these uploads as it come out. Yeah, I'm going to leave things there. But thanks for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.